Hey folks, Mr. Howard here. I'm down in my guest room. Uh, you know, happy quarantine. I'm in my guest room, which is kind of weird to me. Here with my dogs. There's Miss Bennett, and over there is Darcy. Yeah, both allusions to Pride and Prejudice. I'm a nerd. It's how it is. But I'm going to record a quick video review of literary terms for you. I'm setting this up on the guest room bed. It's actually sitting on a complete works of Shakespeare book, so it's even more literary. And I'm going to talk you through a review of literary terminology before I send you to read the story by Jack London, To Build a Fire. It's a great story. I think you'll enjoy it. Really well done. Set in Alaska. It's about a guy who has to build a fire to survive in the cold. It's a civilization versus nature story. Ties in with some of our themes from the Odyssey, which we had started reading before we went on this extended hiatus, and which I'm hoping to get back to after spring break rolls through. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to upload the story, ask you to read it, do some annotations. Tomorrow, I want to get on and read the story aloud with commentary like I would in class on this, and then share that with you, and you can see how you did with reading and annotating today, how your skills are developing. There's sort of a skills check, a review, that kind of a thing. So yeah, let's do a terms review. I don't have a board. I got nothing to write down, but we can talk it through just like we would in class. So first thing I want to review is narrator, or narrative point of view, sometimes called narrative perspective. We've talked about narrators throughout the entirety of the course. As you read To Build a Fire, what kind of a narrator does the story have? The first thing we looked at was a first person versus a third person narrator. What kind of a perspective have we got going on? Is it sort of an omniscient voice that refers to people as he or she, or is it a inside the head of a character, I see this, I do this. I is first person, he or she is third person, that voice of God sort of idea. Is it a limited or an omniscient narrator? Does the narrator only know what the character knows, or does the narrator know everything that happened and is going to happen? Or is it somewhere in between? But generally, we look at narrators as either limited or omniscient. Then past versus present tense. Look at your verbs. Do they all sound like they happened already, or are they happening? If you're reading Ender's Game, it's past tense. If you're reading Hunger Games, it's present tense. It's happening in the now. Reliable narrator versus unreliable narrator. Can we trust the narrator to tell us the truth, or is there something going on with the narrator, like in The Telltale Heart, where the narrator is clearly lying to you throughout the entire thing? So look at that. Then you want to talk about setting. Setting involves two things: where and when. So where is this taking place? And we're not talking just like in the United States. This story is going to take place in Alaska. But what part of Alaska? Like you've got a local setting and sort of a more global setting. You want to look at both of those. And then you've got your time period setting. You may not know for sure what time period you're dealing with, but usually the author gives hints there in the story itself. So you want to look at your setting. And then we run through the plot structure. We've looked at the plot structure a number of times. Plot structure starts out with exposition, which tells us about the setting, tells us about the characters, gives us some characterization to start us out. It's usually sort of like a little bit of an information dump that happens at the beginning. This is a short story, so the exposition is going to be relatively short. It's not going to be like To Kill a Mockingbird, where your entire first chapter and part of your second chapter were an enormous detailed account of Macomb, Alabama, and everything that's going on there. But you want to look at the exposition. What's the author telling us? Then we're going to have an initiating event, something that happens that causes the action of the story to heighten, and the rising action follows from that. The rising action is everything that goes from the initiating event, that sort of starting trigger, up until the climax, the climactic moment, that high point in the action, or the turning point of the story itself. And then after the climax, you've got falling action that starts to sort of tie up loose ends and bring things to a logical conclusion. And generally that conclusion is called the resolution. If you're looking to try and find a theme, to try and find what the author's teaching, the places to look for that theme are the climax and the resolution. Generally it comes across. I'm not going to tell you what the theme of this story is. I want you to think about it and consider it as you read, and we'll put that probably in the questions that'll come tomorrow or the next day. So that's your plot structure. Pay attention to the plot structure. Look through it as time goes on. Then we want to look at the characters. Generally, a story has a protagonist and an antagonist. The protagonist is the main character. We use the word protagonist, remember, because protagonist is moral neutral. It doesn't mean that the main character is a good guy or a bad guy. We're not going to use the word hero. But the main character is your protagonist. The character opposed to the main character is your antagonist. This story only has one real character, the protagonist. Who is the antagonist? I want you to think about that. Antagonists aren't always people. Antagonists can sometimes be other elements or other things in the story, and so try and figure out who the antagonist of the story is as you read it. There's a conflict in every story. The protagonist has a conflict generally with the antagonist, but often with other characters as well. What's the conflict? What is the protagonist trying to overcome? Pay attention to that as the story goes on. Then we've got theme. What is the lesson here? What's the author trying to get across to the reader over the course of the story? You want to think about this from the author's perspective. The author wrote this story. Remember, the whole point of this class is to get us to understand why the authors write things a certain way. It's fun to read a story just to read a story, but what is the author trying to get the reader to think? You can do that. You can analyze literature. You can be successful moving forward in all of your AP classes. So what's the theme? What's the lesson? Figure that out. Then let's look at symbols when something represents something else. What are the symbols in this story? We've had lots of stories with lots of symbols over the course of the school year, whether it's a mockingbird representing innocence or, a windmill representing hope, or a fire representing hope, or a conch shell representing leadership. Are there symbols in this story? What do they represent? There's the guy has a dog. What does a dog represent? Think those things through as you read to build a fire and see where you come to. Then we can talk about figurative language. Remember, figurative language is anything that's not literally happening. If it's literally happening, it's not figurative. And yes, it still makes me crazy that people misrepresent the word literally all the time. I'm literally hungry enough to eat a horse. Yeah, I'm just going to let it pass. I'm not going to go on my rant again. But figurative language, if it's not literally happening, it's figurative. So simile is a comparison that uses like or as. A metaphor is a comparison that does not use like or as. Sometimes they're structured in very, very different ways, and it's something we can just say is metaphorical, even though it doesn't make a clear one-to-one comparison. Oxymoron is when you put two contradictory words together, cold fire, stuff like that. Paradox is an illogical or impossible statement that holds some figurative truth. So on a literal level, it's impossible, but on a figurative level, metaphorical level, a symbolic level, it's true in some way. A personification is giving human traits to inanimate objects. That's definitely going to happen in this story. You want to pay attention. Where is the personification occurring? Hyperbole is an intentional exaggeration on the part of the author to impact the reader. Where is the author using intentional exaggeration? And then finally, allusions. You always want to keep an eye out for allusions, references to historical events, people, places, Greek myth, the Bible, anything like that is designed to add depth to the story. You want to be able to notice those and pull those out and work with them. So, yeah, that's just a quick terms review just to go over those and freshen them in your minds. We'll help you with your outside reading book too as you read The Hunger Games or Ender's Game. Hopefully this review will touch with some of those elements. Anyway, I'm going to shut this video off. Hopefully that's helpful to you. I hope you're all doing well. I know it's tough staying home in the house, but continue your education. You got 4 years of school. This is one of them. I realize it's a long hiatus and you're going to be home a long time, but it doesn't mean you have to stop educating. And it doesn't mean you have to stop learning. So keep it up. Read books, learn, go online, find things that you want to find out. And, if you want to, do my assignments. I'm here to help you. I'm still getting paid and I'm still going to do the work. So if you send me things, I will read them. I will give you feedback. I will give you comments. I will try and help you improve. That's my job, but it's also my passion. And I'm here for you. So Best of luck to everybody. Stay healthy, stay happy, and I will see you soon.